Hi, and welcome to this class. This is our whole brain practice, and today's class is focused on developmental or kind of primal movement. This idea that if we move in the way that we did when we first were learning to move, we can retrain our bodies to move in a more efficient and effective manner. So a lot of these movements are very basic in a sense and somewhat very subtle. So this practice demands a lot of kind of internal awareness or interoception, the ability to go inside. And before we start moving, we'll just set our energy in a nice kind of coherent manner with a little bit of tapping. So find your way to some form of comfortable seat. I'm sitting on my knees, but feel free to sit cross-legged. If you have a blanket handy, it'll be really good for this practice at times. So you might want to sit on the blanket rolled up to give the hips a little bit of a lift. Ideally, the hips end up a little bit higher than the knees so that the spine can stack really nicely. So once you have yourself set up in that way, just take a moment to notice your breath and see where it is right now. We will do this again from a reclined position, but for now, just see where you're at, see how you've arrived. And then take a nice full inhale through the nose. Imagine the breath coming right up underneath the shoulder blades. Inside out the mouth. And then let the breath move in through the nose and out through the mouth as we begin to tap, starting on the stomach meridian and this point along the cheekbones underneath the eyes. And just gently tapping, you might prefer to just hold the point and breathe, or you might prefer to give it a gentle massage. Just doing what works for you right now. And a few more taps, a few more breaths. And then we'll move on to the second point. And before you do that, you might like to pause and hold for a moment, or massage for a moment, or just move straight on. So the second point on the kidney meridian, so this kind of fleshy part underneath the, almost the low point of the collarbones, just gently tapping here. And sometimes it can actually feel nice or invigorating to tap with a little bit more, just a little bit more, with a little bit more speed or a little bit more force. Just be mindful of what your body is really kind of reacting to, responding to. Work with how your body is responding. Settling that down, maybe a breath or two more, maybe you slow it down or hold the point or massage. And the third point is right in the center, on the central meridian, relating to the thymus gland, the thymus point here on the sternum. Now, I tap kind of maybe halfway up the sternum. There's a little slightly more fleshy point that feels appropriate for me, but just search around there and see what feels appropriate for you. And this can be tender, so you might prefer to hold and breathe. I mean, all the points can be tender, so just be mindful. Two or three more there. And maybe that hold and breathe or the massage or anything else you'd like to do to seal off that third point. And we'll move on to the fourth and final point. So up the spleen meridian here, where the spleen meridian kind of loops underneath the armpits. So you can approach this with these kind of T-Rex or chicken wing arms, tapping in and underneath, or you might prefer to reach around underneath the armpits with the hands and tap in this manner. You can just do one side if that works better for you. So exploring that, and finding that sweet spot. Excellent. Breath or two more. And let it all settle. The arms come down. And just tune in, notice the body, notice the breath. Or maybe you start to move to a breath. Then it goes in and out the nose. And finding a sense of softness. You might feel a residual buzzing or tingling in some of the points that were tapped. And see if you can tune into that. Okay, so we're going to come down to a reclined position. If you want your floor to be a little bit more cushy, you might like to fold out your blanket and soften down the floor, or even make the floor a little bit warmer depending on the situation you're in. I'm going to go without the blanket, but feel free to use it. We're going to move into a constructive rest position. So have the heels pretty much lined up with the hip sockets, and then walk the feet as far out or as close in as feels comfortable for you. And the sense of comfort, the sense of grounding through the back, is feeling the support of the surface beneath you. And just notice the body, notice the breath as you settle in. Try and tune into where you notice the breath, and the sense of where you notice the movement effects of the breath, so the parts of the body that are moving because of the way that you're breathing. And you might like to place your hands on those for a little bit of feedback. Exploring the parts of the front of your body where you notice the breath. And exploring the parts on the side of your body where you notice the breath. And then just notice and think about the parts of your back body that are kind of pressing into the mat as you breathe, and notice the change in surface area connection with the inhale and with the exhale. And bring your awareness down to your hips. The first movement is a subtle pelvic movement. So we'll start off by locating the kind of bony, sticky out bit at the front of the hips, or the ASIS. So look for this little nodule at the front of the hips and just notice. Place your hands on it and notice the very, very subtle movement that may be there, and it may not, as you breathe. And we're going to do some movements that are basically like working with a clock. So imagine that the points that you have your hands on is the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock. So those two side-to-side points. And then see if, using that shape, think about a circle, see if you could locate what would be 12 o'clock up here on the central line, kind of at the bottom of the rib cage. And what would be 6 o'clock down near the base of the pelvis there. And then we'll just start thinking about moving just back and forward, feeling low back press into the mat, and then gently draw away, almost like you're just moving 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock closer and further away from each other, if that makes sense. So just these pelvic tilts. And try and notice which parts of your body are helping in generating this movement. So you might notice there's a little bit of different amounts of pressure through the feet. You might notice some activation through the glutes. You might notice some deep abdominals working, or even the slightly more superficial abdominals as well. And just notice what there is to notice as you move in this 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock pelvic tilt fashion. And then pause, let that settle. And then we'll take it on the opposite axis, so this kind of 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock action. So we're doing side to side rocks with the pelvis, and you might have your hands on those ASAS points again, and just gently rock side to side. And notice the different muscles that work and maybe the different pressure between each foot as you rock that pelvis side to side. Do a few more of those. And then let that settle, pause and notice. And then think about moving around the clock. So we start to find this kind of circular, rotating kind of movement here. So it's almost like you're rotating around the sacrum, so the part of the stable kind of fused bony part of the spine that sits in the wedge between those two hip bones. It's like you're rocking around that. Once you've done a few circles in one direction, pause, and you start to gently rotate in the opposite direction. If you're going clockwise, and start moving counterclockwise or vice versa. And just notice the parts of the body that are turning on, softening and activating, and all of those things that are happening. Just being curious. And trying to let go of the idea of a right way or wrong way of doing things, and just notice what your way is. And then let that settle. And then the challenge is to make that even more subtle. So see if you can think about, now that you've been creating these almost circular movements, rocking around the pelvis, but rocking around that kind of sacrum area, can you tune in to a little bit of triangular bone, that sacrum area, and as you press down through the feet a little more, can you get a sense of just rocking the sacrum? And so you're pushing down through the feet, and maybe there's a sense of dragging the feet back underneath, and then pushing the feet away to create this very, very subtle movement of the sacrum. And you might not notice it today. What we're looking for is called nutation, or nodding forward, and counter nutation, or nodding back, of this little wedge, this little bone in the center. And if this movement is kind of foreign or a struggle, it's a sign that maybe things are a little bit locked up in the fascia, the connective tissue, might not be that used to moving, and so it might be a bit tightened and bound. And so doing this movement again and again, again and again, can start to free up that space. So you're free to explore this. And for now, we'll let that go with a little bit of movement side to side, kind of release, sense of relief that you can move in a little bit more of a gross way on large muscle movements. Alright, so be on the back for a few minutes more, so adjust, get comfortable, you might change the blanket position or remove it or add it in. And then you're going to draw the hands to the knees, draw the knees in. Just some simple movements in and out, side to side, drawing circles, just kind of exploring the movement of the thigh bones and the hip sockets. And noticing what happens through that pelvis, through the sacrum, the different amounts of pressure in different parts of the low back, and how your body responds. So then let that go. Reach the arms out wide. Take almost like a cactus shape with the arms, or a T shape if that feels more stable. And then we're just going to kind of generate happy baby but hands spread. So start to send the feet a little bit more up towards the ceiling. Draw the knees a little bit more towards the armpits, or whatever feels comfortable. And then, like a baby would, and its kind of developmental stages of moving, just gently rock side to side. But think about just moving one leg to start with. So you might move the right leg over to the right to the point the left leg kind of comes with. Just let the head move in the way that the head wants to move. It might mean that the head's moving opposite to the legs to kind of counterbalance, or it might feel more comfortable to go in the same way as the legs. Just exploring side to side, letting the left leg drive the movement to the left, and letting the right leg drive the movement to the right. And the leg just following. Beautiful. And release that. Settle in the center, feet flat. This time knock the knees in. Change the position of the arms if you wish. Just notice the body, notice the breath. And then we'll do two more different types of movement from this reclined position. So the first of those two is just this crossing the midline action. So start with left hand reaching for right knee, and then just gently ease right knee across the midline and then back. And try and create resistance. So there's a sense of the hand being resisted by the movement of the leg, and the leg being resisted by the movement of the hand. So there's a sense of isometric contraction or this activation in both directions happening. And just a few of those just to explore that. And then switch change. Moving to the other side. Make sure you cross the midline. And when you do, move our limbs across the midline. We start activating different neural pathways. And bringing ourselves into a little bit more coherence. And then release from that. Feet flat on the floor once again. Just notice the body, notice the breath. And the last little bit of movement while we're in a reclined position is this idea of push-pull. So as we're developing, we start to kind of get a little bit of awareness of pushing and pulling and how that changes the way we interact with our environment. So moving and continuing with the idea of crossing the midline, we're going to create an X here. So reach right hand for left leg. And then when you reach the left hand underneath for the right leg, you're going to wrap the fingers around the shin rather than the knee. And so then we just create these two opposites. So there's a pushing with one as there's a pulling with the other, and then it reverses. And so a little bit of twist is generated, and kind of let that happen. And if you start to kind of rock side to side, welcome that, explore that, be curious about that. Notice if it's easier for you to just pull and then pull and then pull. So maybe you're just pulling, and you might be pulling the left hand and then pulling the right. And see if you can, using the hands in particular, push. that create resistance with the legs. So if you have a tendency to pull, have a go with push, push, push. And then see if you can generate pull, push, pull, push. And then switch it so it's push, pull, push, pull. Exploring the subtleties of that. And then let that go. Notice which hand is which. We're going to switch to the other side in a minute. I'm going to settle. Notice the body, notice the breath. So opposite hand on top. So the left hand on right knee. And then the right hand reaching up around for the left shin. So again, exploring push, pull, and pull, push. The idea of just pulling and then just pushing. So lots to explore here, and let yourself rock if that starts to happen. Notice how the breath is reacting to the movement, and maybe you find a rhythm of breath and movement, but maybe that's enough on your mind with pulling and pushing and creating resistance. Let that go and release. Notice the body, notice the breath, let it settle. Very gently take your time. Ease your way over to one side. Slowly make your way up to a seat. Now you might like the support of a blanket here. A little bit of popping up underneath the hips. And cross-legged is probably the best way to explore this next movement. This next movement is called yielding. But if you'd like to be on the knees or anything else, you could even do this from a chair if need be. That feels more safe and stable for you. We're going to work with this idea of almost kind of tipping over, this kind of yielding down. So as we become adults, or as we start to come through adolescence, and we build more kind of aptitude and awareness and balance, proprioception, knowing where we are in space, then we don't tend to yield as much. We don't tend to collapse as much. And so we might end up with a tendency of holding on, of gripping. So repatterning and repracticing the idea of letting things happen, a sense of falling intentionally or yielding, and it's a beautiful way to train your body to know how to release. So just simply side to side to start with. So get a sense of looseness. You might even take an inhale through the nose and play with the idea of an exhale out the mouth, fluttering the lips. So there's a sense of real softness in the face. You might do that 2 or 3 times. This idea of real soft yielding. And then think about that as you take one hand out to one side and then yield the body over. It might mean you have a little bit of fold forward, and maybe you change the position of the hand. Just a little bit of push up, and then explore yielding down to the other side. Just let the head go if that feels comfortable. If it doesn't feel comfortable, keep a little bit of tone through the neck so you feel a sense of stability there. And otherwise, exploring a sense of yielding, almost flopping. You might start to explore a little bit more forward, bringing the hands forward as well. Just really exploring this idea. If it feels safe, the hand might go back behind you, might lean back a little bit, and lean forward. Let's take another couple. And finding the places that feel easier to yield, really not so easy. And then let that settle. Just notice the body, notice the breath, notice the spine. All the way from the base of the spine, sacrum, all the way up to the base of the brain. Beautiful. Okay, we'll shuffle ourselves around and find our way to a tabletop position. So it might be that you add underneath the knees for a little bit of extra support as we start to move kind of back and forward from a kneeling position. And we're going to start in this tabletop place and thinking about the idea of cat-cow. But before we start moving in that regular kind of linear fashion, we're going to start to move the hips from side to side first. So you might even like to picture the idea of wagging a tail. So think about your tailbone and just letting your tailbone almost lead the movement of gently easing side to side with the hips. And feel free to close the eyes and maybe even play with this idea of yielding as you let the head relax down. Just explore the fluidity of the spine as you move the hips side to side. Again, you might create a little bit of timing of breath, might be inhale to one side, exhale to the other. And then gently slowing it down and making your way back to a more neutral place. And then think about the movement of the spine, a regular kind of cat-cow movement. If you imagine a real tucking of the tailbone as you find your cat shape, and this real lifting of the tailbone as you find your cow shape. Almost as if you had a tail, you'd be looking it back and tapping the back of the head with the tail, and then tucking it under. You're almost tapping your nose with your tail, and just moving like that. And then we'll take a little bit of freedom of movement. So using those explorations, maybe the hands move a little further forward and you can start to really generate circles, spirals. It's a real freedom of exploration, and see if you can bring in this idea of yielding. If you can yield through the hips, through the chest, mindful of the floor and the crown of your head. And just exploring and make sure you move in multiple directions. Try not to get trapped into a particular rotation. It might turn into figure of eights or circles, but if it does, make sure you go in both directions. And then let that settle. Now you can sit back in a child's pose, or you might prefer to sit up in a kneeling position. And just use that as a moment to, again, notice the body and notice the breath. And soften through the face and the jaw. And then gently ease back to tabletop. And we'll create a little bit of rocking and go from tabletop to downward facing dog. So just gently rocking back and forward. And then we'll start to introduce the idea of pushing and pulling again. So the hands push deep into the mat as you push into the feet and push yourself up to downward dog. And then see if you can get an idea of pulling. It might feel a little bit fast if you really do pull a lot. But see if you can get an idea of the push up to down dog, and a pull down to tabletop. You might add a little bit of extra rocking, but start to generate a little bit of movement, rhythm. It might be that an exhale for the push, inhale for the pull. You might really grip with those fingertips as you pull. And we'll meet to let that settle in a downward facing dog. If you prefer to come to tabletop or child's pose, feel free, of course. And then think about pushing the mat away with the hands as you start to walk the hands towards the feet. Bend the knees as much as you wish. You might even feel the belly supported by the thighs. You slowly make your way towards the standing forward fold. That might mean coming up high enough to bring the elbows onto the thighs, or staying low in almost this dangling fashion. And slowly make your way up. Gently stacking the spine, curling up. Set yourself in a standing position, Tadasana. And give yourself a little shake out. Take anything you need, any movement, roll of the shoulders, or anything along those lines. And then we'll make our way towards the top of the mat if you're not there already. Get the feet a little shake. And then take a step back and set for Warrior One and reintroduce this idea of pushing and pulling. So keep the left foot at the top of the mat to start with and step the right foot back. And then set yourself. Most of Warrior One starts with the legs, maybe slightly shorter than normal, so you can move with a sense of ease through the bent knee and pushing back into a straightened leg. And so the movement starts with a straight leg. As you inhale, there's a sense of reaching, and still with the inhale, pulling. So it's inhale, reach, pull as you come into the bend of the knee. And then an exhale, imagine you're pushing something down as you push into the foot and push the leg to straight. So it's reach, pull, inhale. Push, exhale. You might like to add a real grip of the fingers as you pull. Imagine you're pulling a bar. You might prefer the hands to be a little more open. Finding this pattern, take two more. And just simply step to the top of the mat. Pause and hold. Notice the body, notice the breath. And then step back, left foot back. And set yourself in that push position, that exhale position. And when you're ready on your inhale, reach and pull, inhale. Push to straighten, exhale. Reach and pull, inhale. Push to straighten, exhale. Find your pattern. Two more. And then step to the top of the mat. Let that settle. Soften the face and the jaw. So while we're here, we do a little bit of extra kind of brain hemisphere cross-crawling action. So stepping back, this time to set up more like a crescent lunge. Let's step that left foot back first this time. So reaching the left arm up, keeping the right hand down, and we'll do a step forward to cross-crawl action. So as we step forward, lift this left arm, left leg and right arm, and then as we step back, the arms switch. So find that inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale. Take your time, you might be moving faster or slower than I am, and then the option today, if you wish, is to add the little step down, so all the way down to the knee, and then lift up, step down, lift up. It's a little bit more challenging on that front leg. We'll take two more. And on this last one, a little moment to hold at the top. Adjust the leg in any way you wish. You might even reach both arms up or out. And then heads down. Moment between sides. Notice the body, notice the breath. Notice the body in a way that you're exploring the difference between sides. Right foot back. When you're ready, right arm up. And then moving the opposite side. So that little step forward and switch. Little step back and switch. I was moving opposite arm, opposite leg. And then that option today, if you wish, just step back all the way down to the knee and lift. That might mean it seems maybe a little shorter, but also a little bit more dynamic. We'll find two more. And then play with the hold. Arms in any variation. Beautiful, and let that settle. Once again, notice the body, notice the breath. And then we'll come down to the knees to bring a sense of symmetry to that. So we've been working across hemisphere. Sometimes it's nice to work in a little bit more symmetry, working both arms and legs at the same time. So variation of lightning. We'll also reintroduce this idea of yielding for our lightning pose today. So come up onto the knees. You might like to pad with a blanket, as I have, just for a little bit of extra support. Toes tucked or untucked, whatever really serves you in this kind of stable lowering. And then when you're ready, it's an inhale, reach the arms. There's a kind of softness to the arms, especially as you come down to this idea of yielding. So it's almost a controlled collapse in a sense. So this yielding to gravity and the weight. You might even take the hands back and forward down. And then notice which parts need to activate to tone, to lift up. Arms might go more like cactus shape as they come up. And then exhale and yield down. A few more like that. If it feels better to take the arms forward, do that. We're just going to let the arms finish where they want to finish. And we'll finish that off in the child's pose. So let us see. Okay, coming forward to the belly, the next few movements will be from the belly. So you might like to adjust the blanket, flatten it out a little bit so it's not too much of a different surface to the mat, or dispense with the blanket for these next few kind of prone or face down movements. And move the microphone so it doesn't rustle. So come to belly on the mat. And we're going to start with this idea again from here of pushing. So one arm's going to be more like Sphinx pose, and it might be a little bit wider. And then one arm's going to be a little bit closer and more like a cobra. And so gently pushing and pushing up, and then controlling, lowering down. This sense of yielding, and maybe you turn the head to one side. Pushing and lifting up, and then yielding. Maybe the head goes to the other side. A little bit of activation through the legs. Maybe it's an inhale to lift, and an exhale, kind of release and yield down. Or it might feel better to exhale, push up, and inhale, come down. Just work with what serves you. One more. And let that go. We'll pause on the belly for a moment, and whichever arm it is that you have the hand a little closer, the more of the cobra variation, wing the elbow out to the side and then slide that knee up. So for me, I've got my right hand a little closer in, so I brought my right knee up, and I've turned my head to the right. Just notice the body, notice the breath. And then we'll change sides. I'm bringing my left hand closer, my right arm out onto more of a Sphinx setup, or a wide Sphinx setup. And then once again, pushing through the hands to lift up. And you don't have to lift up super high. Might be much lower, much more subtle. Exploring, pushing, and yielding. Maybe you change the gaze point, the rotation of the head each time. And you might play with subtly different amounts of lift each time, or add in whatever you're working with on the other side. If there's anything in particular that was interesting you or that you noticed you were doing. And then just find one or two more. And then turning the head in the direction of the hand that's closer to the shoulder. And then slide that knee up. So for me, left hand and the left knee sliding towards it. And we'll come back through center. And then bring a little bit of symmetry to that movement. So hands plant maybe a little bit wider, maybe kind of more like seal pose, a little bit further up, or you might play with more like Sphinx pose, but just work with what serves you, and just again, a little bit of pushing and lifting. And see if you can keep a sense of neutrality with the neck this time. So not turning it to either side, just lifting and lowering. might gaze forward, you might gaze down. One more. And this time when you come forward, you might make a pillow so you can rest in a neutral place, making a pillow with the hands or the forehead to rest. You might even pay special attention to creating a little bit of pressure on the bridge of the nose. And this sometimes can feel very soothing for the nervous system. It is said to potentially be an activator of the vagus nerve. And good way to wind down a little bit, ease down. And then the next movement is a little bit like crawling without going anywhere. So, another one of these developmental stages is when you start to kind of swing those hips and move the side body and move the arms, kind of one hand forward, one hand back. So, mimicking that movement, and start with, have the left knee drawn up towards the left and the left elbow drawn back towards the knee, and I'm turning my head to that side, and then explore doing that opposite side to side. So it might be kind of two movements, coming down and lifting up, switching sides. Or it might be that you don't come down, you keep everything up. It's a little bit more of a workout, a little bit more activation through the back as you bring same side knee towards the elbow. Just working with what serves you. And then settle in center. Once you feel even, if you need another one or two to each side, feel free. And then we'll take that same movement pattern, but move it onto the back. So you might sit up and roll over, or just roll on over, come to your back. And then working with the same movement pattern, this time from a reclined position. So almost like you're coming to happy baby. Bring the arms out in cactus shape. And there's a sense of the left side reaches and lengthens, left arm, left leg, as the right side compresses. So right elbow to right knee. And then switch change. So pretty much the same movement you were doing, but this time from your back. And you might find more freedom. Maybe you find this more challenging. Just notice the difference for you. And just take two more to each side. And then let it settle. Maybe it's constructive rest. Maybe it's shavasana shape. As we start to kind of wind down and explore towards shavasana, if you are done, you're ready, you want to take it to shavasana now, feel free. Otherwise, we'll take the last few movements, these undulating bridges, but keeping it very kind of soft and subtle. So you might simply just inhale, reach the arms up and overhead. Exhale, slowly draw them back. It doesn't have to be a big, wide, lifting arc. It can just be a sense of opening the chest, bringing it back,
And there's a real sense of subtlety to it. Or you might add the hips to that, so lifting up, hands go back. Lowering down, hands come forward. And find the softness in the movement, find the breath rhythm in the movement. And you might prefer to just work with the hips, or like before, just work with the arms. It's really not about getting the hips as high as possible, or toning or strengthening. It's very much just, as we're coming to the end of the practice, about awareness. Awareness of how symmetrical your body moves, and what its asymmetrical tendencies are, which foot pushes down first, which foot pushes down second, and where's the wobble happening through the hips. Which arm likes to go all the way, which arm isn't as compliant. Just noticing those things. And one or two more rounds as you really start to let it settle. Maybe each round becomes more and more subtle. And if you would like a longer shavasana and you'd like to go there now, feel free. Just extend the legs or roll to your side or to your belly and find your shavasana shape. Otherwise, let's take a few breaths to set up for a supported bridge as our final pose before shavasana. Lifting the hips enough to roll in, slide in, a folded blanket or a bolster, cushion or a pillow, anything you have to kind of lift the hips but allow them to really feel supported by a sense of softness. And then maybe knees come in and legs lift up for this waterfall shape, or you might prefer to keep feet down. And then it might be hands down, arms soft, or maybe you reach the arms up. Keep a sense of softness and heaviness through the limbs, through the fingers and toes. A sense of setting up the shape, but almost inviting this idea of yielding here. Yielding through the fingers, yielding through the toes. Or yielding through the wrists and through the ankles. And gently ease your way towards the floor. If you're not there already, we'll make our way towards our final shape, Shavasana. So extending out in whatever way suits you. You might even like to take feet flat on the floor, knees knocked in. Shavasana in this constructive rest shape. Maybe the legs are long and wide. Maybe on your side in more of a fetal position. On your belly. Even if you'd like to finish the practice seated, feel free. Once you've found your shape, seeing if you can tune in once again to this idea of yielding, allowing your body to release, soften, to settle, allowing your body to drop into the support that sits there beneath it. Releasing any control of the breath and at the same time softening the face, the jaw, softening through the tongue, eyebrows, eyelids, softening the skin of the forehead, softening the ears, Noticing if there is any more ways you can yield the body. Finding the stillness of this shavasana, these last few minutes. Even if you do have a little longer, more time to explore this, maybe feel free to stay. If you're ready to seal it off, feel free to move in any way that feels appropriate to start to bring a little life back into the body. And maybe you think about some of those developmental movements. And then feel free to come to a seat or sealing the practice off where you are by placing the hands together, maybe one on top of the other in the center of the chest, or folding them together in a prayer position. And seal the practice off with a shared breath. Starting with a nice full inhale, imagine the breath coming right up underneath the shoulder blades and expanding. And then sidle out the mouth, yielding, releasing, softening. Thank you so much for practicing with me today and choosing this as your practice. A wonderful rest of your day, and namaste.